Welcome to the Alternatives Mason podcast. With host Brittany Mason, Chief of Staff at Bonner & Capital Management, you'll learn how to build alternatives knowledge brick by brick. Bonner & Capital Management uses technology to help independent advisors scale and educate themselves on alternative investments. And since education is such a big piece of what we do, we are excited to kick off the series to dive into the nits and grits of the alternative space.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Alternative Mason. Brittany Mason, your host, and coming to you live right here from the Green Couch. I am so excited for our very special guest today. I've been really looking forward to this episode. We have Jacqueline Shattuck, who is a dedicated certified financial planner, a professional who partners with individuals and families to provide comprehensive financial guidance with a passion for helping clients in achieving financial success. She has been featured in media outlets like CNBC and MarketWatch. Jacqueline also gives back to her community through volunteer work, serving on the board of the Financial Planning Association of Georgia and providing financial education and presentations to local organizations. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jacqueline. I'm so excited to have you on.
Hey, Brittany, I'm excited to be here. Super excited, actually. And I'm not on the board for the Financial Planning Association anymore, but I do still give back to the community, especially through my most recent show on PBS called My Money Mentors.
Yes, I just saw the trailer actually, and it looks so good. So the first episode is actually coming out on June 17th. Is that right?
June 17th. Yep, exactly. And they've approved us for season 2. So it's been an exciting journey.
That is so exciting. I did like a deep dive into your YouTube channel and just, your presence online. You're so engaging and you're so good on camera. So I feel like this is just a natural progression for you. Is this something you always wanted to do, was have your own show?
It's interesting. I, started off in certified financial planner, started off at a solo advisors financial planning firm when I was in college. And I was just kind of looking around like, how can I be successful in this industry? How can I be successful in this role? And so as we start looking into personal finance, right, we always come across Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey, right? They've done a really good job of putting themselves out there. And so I remember sitting there watching Susie's show. I was 20 years old. And the only thing I thought about was I was like, she can't be broke, right? Like I don't know for certain, but the reality of me getting into financial planning was because my family was dead broke. And I made a promise to myself that I would never be that broke again. And so as I was watching Susie, I was like, maybe I need to get on TV. And I just kind of left it at that, right? And that was over 10 years ago. And then it would have been 8 or 9 months before the show actually launched, PBS reached out to me. They saw me on social media. They said, hey, we'd love for you to host a financial show for us. And it was funny because about 2 weeks before they reached out to me, I had put out there my 2024 goals. And I was like, you know what? I think it's time for me to do a TV show. And I left it at that, didn't follow up on it. And then 2 weeks later, get a call, hey, can you host a show for us? So it's been an exciting and fun journey. And I appreciate the compliment.
That is amazing. I mean, it truly was just meant to be. You really manifested it. You really did.
I think so.
So, you mentioned that, you said your family was dead broke growing up. I can absolutely relate to you on that. I also don't come from, any sort of background that had any sort of introduction to financial education or guidance or anything like that. And my relationship to money was lack. It was always the lack of money as well. And so I'm very interested in knowing, what was your earliest memory of money, or, what's a memory that sticks out to you the most where that spark inside you really developed, like, this is not going to be my life. This is not what my life is going to be.
I love that question. And I ask people that a lot. I ask a lot of clients that question, especially ones who I notice are struggling in their relationship with money. And so my first memory of money is actually, I was about 5 years old and I had a foster brother, an older foster brother, and his mother came to pick him up for the day. And she was like, hey, do you want to come along with us? And I don't know if you guys remember when Target kind of like hit like its height, right? And they had the slushies and the popcorn and all the things. So mom picks us up. We go to Target. And we go to buy the slushie and the popcorn, and me being 5 or 6 years old, I pull out my little Velcro wallet and I go to pay for my stuff, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm gonna pay for my stuff." And she's like, "Also, why do you have like $100 and something? You're like 5 years old." And I was like, any money that I could ever get my hands on, I would always keep it. I wouldn't spend it, but I was willing to spend $2 on a slushie and popcorn. But that's really my first memory of money is, okay, I've always been a saver, and being a saver is great, right? And as you know, advisors, other investment advisors, we know saving money is part of the game. But I realized that in my journey through financial planning and becoming, a wealth advisor, we can't build wealth through just saving, right? We also have to invest. So that's why I love where you guys come in with the alternatives, because we need all of these moving pieces together to make it work. But that's my first memory.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. It's one thing to be able to save, but then to also learn how to, how do you keep your money and how do you make your money work for you? How do you expand on what you have been able to save? Those are all things that are learned skills, and there's just not enough financial education out there. And so a lot of times, yeah, I mean, people like you and me, I think it took that realization that, hey, I have to take control of my life. And no one's gonna save you. No one's gonna just come and save you. You've got to take control of your life and your own finances. So you were pretty young when you knew that you wanted to go into this industry. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
You knew
Yeah,
that's what
I
you
was about,
in college. And
yeah, 19, 20 years old. I was going to like the financial advising events, all the events where the wholesalers schmooze you. I was going to those before I could drink. So they would hand me the drink tickets and I would just politely put them up.
oh my gosh, oh my goodness. So something else that really resonated with me, it can be a touchy subject, but something else that I know that you've shared and you have talked about before is that you were also in an abusive relationship. Is that right? Yes. And so
I don't talk about it much, but yeah.
yeah, it really resonates with me, and I because I also have experienced that, and I think many women have. 1 in 3 women experience relationship abuse, and 1 in 4 men experience relationship abuse. It actually does go both ways, and so men are part of that conversation as well. Through the experiences that I had, I it was actually a big part of my story and the root as to why I've gone into finance now. And I've only gone into finance in recent couple years. I was more into production and advertising and a totally different career before this. But I am deeply passionate about women specifically taking control of their finances and changing, their financial health and freedom. And
Mm.
so in that situation yourself in, obviously we don't know the ins and outs. How did you break away from that mentality? How were you able to get yourself out of that situation? You can obviously
Yeah,
share what you're comfortable with, of course.
yeah, absolutely. I think that, like you said, women taking control of their money, firstly, that means different things to different women. So for some women, taking control of your money is leaving the abusive relationship and standing on your own 2 feet. For some women, taking control of your money just simply means, let me understand what the money in our household goes to. Actually, how much money does my husband really make? Are we saving adequately for retirement? So taking control means different things for different women. In my case, taking control and the relationship that I was a part of, I sat down one day, and of course, for those of us who have been through those kinds of relationships, it's usually not a clean cut of, in a relationship to not in a relationship, right? There's usually this very murky gray area. And so I remember being in that murky gray area and thinking to myself, I'm really young, and this isn't the vision that I have for my life. And so I decided that in the vision that I saw for myself, that vision required me to be around people who were supportive, not only of my, actual goals and vision, but also my financial goals. And so in that particular relationship that I was in, I felt like it was financial abuse to want to hoard your own finances, to not want to be transparent about your financial situation. You know, how are we supposed to grow as a couple and as a unit if you're not fully transparent? And so a lot of people experience financial infidelity, and that's exactly what I was going through in that relationship. And, you know, among other things, physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, all that. But yeah, the financial infidelity was one that really stood out to me, because how am I going to be a leader in the financial space and I, you know, am not able to be a participant in, you know, a financially transparent relationship? And so that was one of the catalysts for me wanting to be out. And so, for any woman who may be listening to this, or any individual who's dealing with a situation where, you know, there is abuse, I would say that it's very important that you focus on your vision, figure out what your vision is, and make sure that you're moving in alignment with that, because financial infidelity is really not fair to anybody. And I would encourage you to find your way in your path forward.
Absolutely. What are some small action steps that a woman could possibly take to start making that path for financial independence that perhaps finds herself struggling in that situation?
I think that the path to financial independence can seem a little bit scary at first, right? It can seem like, wow, there's all of these things out here that I don't know about. Where do I really start? Where do I begin? And I think the first place to begin is to start with that vision. What is the vision that you have for your life? Does it involve this individual that you're with, or do you see yourself in a happier, healthier relationship, or even just standing on your own 2 feet? What does that look like for you? And then I want you to start with finding some information and somebody that resonates with your situation. So we have all this free information on the internet, right? And so I would say that there is no shortage of financial information, right? We can find financial content all over the place. I'm sure we'll have the link to my show below. You can easily start there. But I would say start with gathering some of those pieces of your financial picture that you really need. And so you really need to understand exactly where you're at right now financially. So get a good handle on what assets you have, what debts you have. Start writing these things down, because there's a really big power in writing. So I would say have that vision, figure out exactly where you are, and then just start taking those small steps to get there.
For centuries, I mean, women have had to, be subordinate or allow the man to take the lead in the household of finances. It's just been that way for centuries. We couldn't get our own business loan. We couldn't, own a home, and now women own more homes than men statistically.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still happening. Whereas I think it's 73% of women, after their, husbands pass away, and then they're in charge of finances, they tend to switch advisors because they don't really understand what's going on, and that advisor didn't build that relationship with them. How do you foresee the financial landscape changing for women in the next 5 to 10 years, as we're gaining more and more power and financial independence?
Yeah, isn't that transition so interesting? It's interesting to be a part of, right? So we're watching the wealth transition right now. So we've got a lot of, our baby boomers and traditionalists that are passing away. And what the reality of those situations is, you had a lot of men who married, I wouldn't say much younger women, but definitely younger women. And so, as women, one, we outlive men, right? We live an average of 5 years longer than most men. So, we already outlive our husbands. But then, on top of that, you've got this younger generation of women that are inheriting from their husbands that are a little bit older. And so, as we're watching this wealth transition through, it's interesting to be a part of it and being on the advisor side, because I work almost exclusively with women 55 and older. And so I'm seeing this on a day-to-day basis, where we're having these conversations of, my husband's passed away, I'm now a widow, and what do I do next? I've got $3 million, $5 million, $10 million, right? So husband did a good job, but I wasn't part of any of the planning. I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what was being spent. The financial advisor never tried to have a relationship with me. So now what do I do? And so it's been, like I said, interesting to be part of this process. And I think for most women moving forward and for most advisors, it's going to be super key that we are building this trust, right? You have this trust with your advisor's looking to have this trust with you. I've heard so many stories from situations from one woman who she said that her advisor never even acknowledged her. Like when they would write letters or emails to the house, they never even acknowledged her existence. So it's just very easy and simple to write the letter to Mr. and Mrs. Whoever takes the lead on the household, doesn't matter, always include the other person. So when I'm sending follow-up emails, I'm making phone calls, I'm making sure that both parties are included. One, it helps with the overall financial planning for the whole family, but two, it can help to keep the other partner, who maybe is the woman in the relationship, still engaged and involved and up to date with what's going on. That way, if something happens to their partner, they still, have a footing in and are not completely left in the dark.
Yes, yes. Building that trust and that relationship with your financial advisor and with your client. I mean, that relationship is key. It's so important. And what advice would you give to our listeners, specifically our female listeners that are, looking for the right financial advisor for them? It's almost as if, they're doing an interview. How do they find the right fit for them?
I would say you want to work specifically with somebody who focuses in on your phase of life and your life experience. So you have a ton of different advisors, right? For example, I have a lot of clients who they used an advisor for the first phase of life. So they used an advisor for their accumulation phase as they were building up their accounts. But now you want to use an advisor that focuses on you going ahead and distributing all that money out of your accounts, right? That's what retirement is. So I would say find somebody that focuses in on where you are in your phase of life, right? If you're divorced, if you're a widow, find somebody who has experience with that, right? If you're an entrepreneur, you work for a tech company, you have, stock options, focus in on somebody who understands that piece for you. So it may take a little bit of extra legwork, but definitely find an advisor who has experience in what you're dealing with.
But it's so worth it. I mean, this person's advising you on your money, your finances. And so if it takes a little bit longer to find the right fit, then so be it, because that's your future, in their hands. So
exactly.
Yeah. So you're all about positivity. And like I said, you're just so engaging online and on camera. And, I've listened to some of your YouTube videos and just starting the day out so positive. What keeps you motivated and, passionate with that grit you have? What keeps you going?
Interesting question. I think in my case, I will remind myself throughout the day that everything is voluntary and to continue to express gratitude for where I'm at. Because, yes, I was originally motivated by not wanting to be broke anymore. But at a certain point, okay, we're not broke anymore. So now what? So I think what keeps me motivated is honestly remembering that every time I go to the gym, every time I'm working with clients, every time I'm on an interview, this is voluntary. I could be, depressed in my bed hanging out, but the reality that I have the ability to be here and to share my gifts with the world and, to exercise and to be able to put my best foot forward, all of those things really keep me motivated. So just reminding myself that everything is voluntary, even when the alarm clock goes off at 5 a.m. Getting up is voluntary. So it keeps me motivated.
And so when you finally did come into money, so when you're not broke anymore, did you was there a purchase or was there something specific that you purchased as a gift to yourself to celebrate and, say, hey, I did it, I made it?
There was a few things, but I'm a car person. So my grandfather was a NASCAR mechanic, and so I grew up around cars a lot. And so my first real gift to myself was a pretty nice car.
That's fantastic. I love it. What type of car was it? You said?
It was a BMW i8. So I don't know if you know the ones with the butterfly doors. They're pretty sleek.
Beautiful. I love it. So, I mean, as you said, you are a very positive person. You have your tactics to keep you going each day. But when someone's suffering from financial trauma, which I know is something else that you do talk about quite a lot, um, what are some signs that someone is suffering from financial trauma? Maybe one of our, maybe our listeners don't even realize it. What are some key factors of someone who is perhaps suffering from financial trauma?
What I noticed from people who are suffering with financial trauma is really it can go drastic one of two ways. So if you're dealing with financial trauma, sometimes you swing very hard to the left and you're a very big spender. And money comes and money goes really quickly, and it's because you have some trauma related around maybe not having enough growing up, and so you feel like you need to buy these things. Or other times you swing all the way to the other end, and instead of being a spender, you're a huge saver and you just hoard money and you never let it go, right? And so I think that the biggest thing to think about when you're experiencing financial trauma, or maybe your money just isn't flowing as fluidly as you would like it to, I would say your best bet is to work on your relationship with money. And so it's really key that you start to focus on money and look at it as really a medium of exchange as opposed to an indicator of your worth. Because a lot of times we'll use money as an indicator of our human value, and then that trauma really starts to rear its head again. So I would say if you're experiencing financial trauma and maybe you haven't really realized that, I would say the best thing for you to do is to start having open financial conversations with people around money. So whether that's your advisor, your therapist, your family, just start having those open conversations so that you can try to make that flow a little bit more fluidly. The best analogy that I give for people is really to, if you can see my hand is making a fist, and let's pretend there's some money in here, right? And a lot of us are holding on so tightly to this money here, right? And we're hoarding it and we're keeping very close track of it. But the problem with holding on to it so tightly is nobody else can put any other money in my hand. I can't allow anything else to get in. So we want to maintain this openness so that money can flow in and out, right? That's why we call it cash flow. And so you have to let that energy flow. And the more that you're able to be open with it, the more that you can let more in.
I love that. Yes. Money is it's more energy. It's an energetic type of transfer. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So what you were okay, so it's one thing to be able to save money and but then to be able to make it work for you and expand on that and to keep money. So and I know you mentioned alternatives, which is yes, of course, what Bonarian does. That's what we specialize in. We are the place for all things alternatives. What are some of your favorite alternative strategies and favorite types of alternative funds that you like to utilize in your portfolio construction?
Yes, this is a fun conversation. So, with a lot of my clients, because we're retired on the retired stage, we focus on more traditional assets, right? More annuities, stocks, bonds, mutual funds of the most basic kind. Alternatives that I like to throw in for my clients include REITs, like real estate investment trusts. So, for those who are listening, those are funds where instead of you having to go out and purchase real estate on your own, you actually can buy it in a fund. So, I love to throw those into our alternative buckets for clients. Also, there may just be some, a little bit of like tactical investing that happens in a portfolio for a client where we're throwing in alternatives because we see a good buying opportunity, right? So we want to follow the same basic investing principle of buying low and selling high. So, let's say there's an option for commodities out on the market and we're able to buy low and sell high. That's a great opportunity that we want to take advantage of. Additionally, we may look into some other alternatives for clients who have a higher net worth, such as some private equity options. So love to layer those into clients' portfolios.
And I mean, we're seeing people utilize alternatives much more than we used to, rather than the 60/40 type of portfolio structure. How do you foresee that evolving, with the usage of alternatives?
Yes, it's interesting because I'm getting questions about that on a weekly basis. What about layering in, crypto? What about layering in this other cool thing that I saw on CNBC? And so it's exciting to have those conversations. And I think more and more of that is going to be layered into portfolios as we have a new evolved investor, right? A lot of us can really think, this large investing platform who decided to do away with transaction costs and really made a shift in the market. And so we've seen that shift from, big hedge funds and institutional investors running everything to more of the retail investor having more control and being a lot more educated. And so with this new education comes some of this desire for additional alternatives in the portfolio. And at Golden Wealth Strategies, we want to be able to fulfill that need as it comes.
Do you have any types of favorite alternatives? Types of funds.
Favorite alternatives, I do, going back to REITs, I do love to layer them into the portfolio. I do own some like actual tangible property, but I also know that it can be quite a bit of work, a little bit of an extra headache. So if we can layer in another option to be able to be hands off, I love that.
So you said most of your clients are women, which that's awesome. What are the most common obstacles or hesitations you feel you encounter with the women, with, the way women are utilizing your services?
Common obstacles for women, I would say there's so many, but what's the most important thing for women? I would say for a lot of times we don't trust very easily, which is fair. That can be a hard thing for us to work through. But I would say that a lot of times our inability to trust also leads to our inability to make decisions. And so in that we become paralyzed and we don't do anything oftentimes, or we delay our decision making. And a lot of times delayed decision making can lead to lower investment returns. It can lead to higher taxes. It can lead to just a lot of negatives in your investment portfolio. And that's what we don't want. So for women, I would say one of the most important things is for us to make decisions quickly. Of course, we want to make informed decisions. So I always tell people we really don't need additional time to make decisions. We need additional information. So the sooner that we can get that information, the sooner that we can make decisions, and then we can move on about our day.
So do you have a favorite, success story or a client that you've worked with, that's completely transformed their financial situation that you could share?
I think my favorite success story is a woman who she heard me on the radio. So I have a radio show that airs on Saturdays and Sundays in both Atlanta and DC markets. And she heard me on the radio. I think she had been listening to me for a few weeks. And she called in and she said, I only want to speak with Jacqueline. And she was like, I really believe that God sent you to me. And she told me a little bit about her situation. She had been widowed for several years and hadn't really been able to bring herself to, one, trust any financial professional, but two, be able to close out her late husband's estate. And so, when we met together, she said, I've been listening to you. I feel like you have some really good information. I feel like you really can understand my situation. And so we were able to meet. We were able to bring in some lateral professionals. So we needed an estate attorney. We needed a CPA to help close up the estate, get the taxes done properly. She had to go through probate. And so, it was kind of a long process, but we were able to get it all done. And, during the process, she had shared some hesitancy with me. She was like, hey, I'm not really sure that I want to go through with this. My husband, he did all of this for us, and I just don't really want to touch anything that he's done. I really just want to, I just feel like I'm supposed to leave it at bay, leave it at rest for him. And one of the things that I shared with her was that building an investment portfolio and leaving a legacy behind for your family and leaving money behind, all of that is one of the biggest forms of love that we can share, because that tells me that your husband, who's not here now, was thinking about your future and your children's future when you weren't even around. And I said, I think that this gentleman, who I've never met, I think that he would want for you to take advantage of the millions of dollars that he left behind for you. And I don't think he would want you to, be continuing to work longer. I think he would want you to be able to be at rest and to be your happiest self. And so I believe that that was a really big success story, because I just love what he had built, not having met him. And the fact that, she still cared so much about him all these years later after he had passed. So it's like not even a story truly about the money, but genuinely about what it represents and how it can really bring us together, and the things that it can do, and the way it can transform our lives and our relationships.
That is such a beautiful story because, yeah, I mean, that's really what money is. That's what it can be. It can completely transform your life and give you freedom. Like, of course, the saying money can't buy happiness, but money can buy you opportunity, to be happy and certain things to allow you that freedom to be able to free up more time to spend with your family and friends, or to do things that you love. And that's a beautiful story. And that's really what has brought me into this newfound passion for finance as well, is just the way it can truly transform someone's life and gaining that financial independence. And me rebuild this journey that I've been on, to rebuild my entire life from scratch, and to do that all over again later on in life, like starting completely from scratch later in your 30s, is so hard.
Yeah.
As but starting from the ground up, I mean, and being able to finally, be back on my feet and get into a really great space. I just think that I just hope that everyone out there, gets the courage to be able to take control of their finances and their financial health. I do think one of the biggest things, it's the mental approach. It's that your relationship to money. And I'm so happy that you begin with that's where you start, because I also didn't realize that that's such a huge and important aspect to this industry and to this world. Because I did not have a good relationship with money. I had a lot of financial trauma, and it really dictated and had power over my life for so many years, honestly, for a large part of my adult life. And yeah, it really wasn't until I was stripped of everything that I owned and then had to completely start from square one. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to go into finance or law, because I'm never going to allow anything like this to happen ever again. And so I do believe that sometimes facing your fears is the greatest thing that you can ever do, because on the other side of that is freedom. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I commend you on your journey and your progress. I know it's not easy to say, hey, clean slate, wipe all that away, start all over again. It never gets easier. And so thank you for sharing that and doing that. I think that is very important. And until you really learn how to do it, it just sounds kind of like this thing that's out there, right? But until you really learn how to fall in love with the journey and the process, it's going to be very, very hard for you. But I think the moment that we really fall in love with that, and we can embody and feel the fact that this is actually a journey and there's a financial journey right here, and until we can really fall in love with that, we're going to feel that resistance. But as soon as you can start accepting, hey, this is just where I'm at right now, but this is where I want to go, then it just becomes this really beautiful, beautiful process. And that's one of the things that I love about working with the women that are 55 and older, I get to hear all of the wonderful stories and so much about the journey. And I get to be a part of their transition into their next journey, because believe it or not, we're going to spend about a third of our lives in retirement. So I know society tells us that for women, life is over at 30 years old, but you're going to spend at least 1/3 of that life in retirement. So another quick story is I had a client, she came to me and she was 65 when she came, but she shared with me, she was like, you're part of my new experience and my new leaf and my new turn in life. She was like, when I was 63, I decided to go skydiving. And this was just a symbol of the new, turn of life that I was experiencing and this next phase that I'm headed into. And she was like, I feel like you're helping me continue to keep that spark going. And that's just part of what I needed. And so it's really exciting.
I love that. Do you have any advice for your younger self?
My younger self, younger Jacqueline wasn't very confident. So I would tell younger Jacqueline to have a little bit more confidence and be in closer alignment with who she truly is, because there's so many things that we're supposed to, show when we're a financial advisor, and have the flashy car, and, never be wrong, and all these things that you're supposed to do when you work in finance. And, I would just tell younger me, the sooner that you can get in alignment with yourself, the sooner that you're going to be at peace, the sooner that you're going to allow more things to flow, including money. So find the quickest way to get in that alignment with your full self, and you'll be able to help so many more people, and you'll just be happier overall.
I love that. And what are some of your goals for the future? I mean, you're on top of the world right now. You've got so many exciting things going on, but I have a feeling that's how life typically is for you, because you have a lot of grit and you're a hard worker. So, but what do you want to achieve in the next, what do you want to achieve next in the next 5 years?
Yeah, you're so sweet. I don't think I've blushed so much on a podcast. Over the next 5 years, the goal is really to take the PBS show nationwide. So as of right now, our mentees are all in the Atlanta location. Our production team is all in Atlanta. I'm in DC primarily. So, I'm back and forth between the two. So the idea would be to be able to make the PBS show a little bit bigger, be able to help more people with that. So that's the goal. So aside from the PBS show, which is them really it's a docu-reality. So it's them just kind of documenting my day-to-day life. You'll get to see my Atlanta office and all of the inside outsides of all of that. But the goal would also be to continue helping women over the age of 55 have successful retirements and build generational wealth for their family and leave a legacy that they like to leave. So building golden wealth strategies and taking the PBS show national, that's the goal for the next 5 years.
Love it. I love it. Do you have any advice for our listeners, or anything, resources for our listeners that are looking to learn more in this field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we were saying earlier, there's so much content that's on the internet. There's so much financial content, but you really need somebody to put the context to the content. So I call it community service. My PBS show, community service. You're getting tons of financial gems there, as well as on the show, we actually have a resources page. So you can get all the resources of things that we maybe mentioned in the show that could be helpful for you. And then on top of that, at Golden Wealth Strategies, between my radio show, the other TV appearances that I do, YouTube, there's just endless resources there, and me just putting context to a lot of the financial content. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. It's been a joy to have you on. Everyone, find Jacqueline Shattuck online, give her a follow. She is so engaging and just gives a wealth of information. It's been such a joy to have you on today. I know I've learned a lot. I know our listeners did too. So thank you again. And everyone, be sure to tune in to the next episode live from the Green Couch. Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Thanks for having me, Brittany. See you soon.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. As always, please remember investing involves risk and possible loss of capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional.